Hello everyone, so today I'm going to show you how I glaze my oil pourers. So we're going to do the next one in oranges and yellows, fairly similar to this one. So we start off obviously with just a biscuit 5-pot. The lid has got quite a lot of give still because it's going to shrink by probably another 5 to 7% in its glaze firing, so it already shrunk a little bit for its biscuit firing, but then it will shrink its further amount in the glaze firing. So this clay shrinks about 10%. So because they pick up bits of dust and things from being sat and also coming in and out of the kiln and things like that, I always just give them a damp wipe to begin with. And this is the time that if you've got mugs or things that have got a bit more of a foot, then you put it on where this one's got a fairly flat foot, so I'll just wipe that one off at the end if it's needed. And then I've just got some iron oxide here. So because of all these lovely cracks that are created by the sodium silicate, I like to put a bit of iron oxide in, and it just really gets into the cracks and sort of brings them to life a little bit. So I'm just going to do that. Add a little bit more water to that iron oxide because it is a little bit too black. Cool, so I'll show you when I've finished one. So when that's fired, it will sort of come out as this little bit. You can see it. So it's sort of a browny black depending on quite how thick it is. Some bits are a bit more brown if that's got less pigment in it, and then some are a bit more black if it's got more. So it just, adds to the whole textured crackle feel of the pots. Sort of a little bit like tree bark, I suppose. Just themes it nicely to our like and inspiration. So these bits are all put on in the throwing process. So these, so it's meant to, when they're being thrown, it's quite a straight shape, and then you put your slip on and your sodium silicate and then push it from the inside. So when this goes on, it's just like a liquid, which then only cracks when you push it out in the throwing process. Yeah, adds a bit more of an interesting depth to it. And then you can see also in these slips here that they went on a bit more solid, but then have moved as it's been thrown. And then again, same with the circles, they were a circle, but then become more oval shaped as the throwing process has gone on. So what I did here is just using my damp sponge just to get the iron oxide off the surface of it, and then because my sponge can't get in the cracks, then it leaves all the pigment in the cracks. Bit of a longer process, especially because this one's got lots of sodium silicate spots on it. So next step is to decide what sort of colours I want. So if we're doing yellows and oranges, then we'll start with my textured yellow. Again, add a bit more water into that because it's dried out. Give that a good old mix. So glazes are a mixture of fluxes, stabilisers and glassy particles, anti-colorants of course. So yeah, they're all raw materials out of the ground to begin with, and then it's only when they're fired and essentially melted that they sort of become a little bit more like glass. And then this one is a volcano one, so it's got some silicon carbide in it, which are sort of like little black gritty particles, which when they're fired then they let off the carbon dioxide, which then bubbles into the glaze and is set. So that becomes the lots of little bubbles you can see here, which are quite pleasing. Cool, so then you just, for my textured glazes I tend to find like the barer spots, so sort of up near the neck, and if there's any like gaps in between the slips and the circles, I tend to put a bit in there, just so you're trying to enhance the bits that have got less going on rather than covering pieces that are quite interesting already. So yeah, obviously this is going to be different for every single pot because single pot will be thrown differently, and I won't put my slips on in exactly the same place, I won't put the circles on in the same place, blah 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 blah, the list goes on. So it's sort of, yeah, a little bit of, you know, when you were younger and you used to like draw scribbles on a paper and then colour in all of the little gaps in between. It's a little bit like that. Cool, so that's probably enough for my bubbly glaze. So we'll move on to the orange. So this orange is a bit of a blessing and a curse because it was made by the previous artist in residence at Giggleswick. So I've sort of inherited the glaze and like the glaze, but I don't know what the recipe is. So that is the mission for the next couple of months, is try and do some tests and make an orange that I like. So this is also another highlighting the importance of labelling your glazes. But I suppose if you know what's in it, then it's fine. It's only when other people use them and don't have an idea that it's a problem. But yeah, anyway, that is by the by. So with this orange, I'm just sort of again filling in more of the slightly less interesting spots, and then because this glaze is a smooth, shiny, flat glaze, it can go closer to the opening at the top because it's not going to interfere with food safety or the fit of the oil pourer. So again, just a case of filling in the gaps. So all of these sort of colours are inspired by the various different lichens. So the yellows is sort of off the Zaneophora parentina, which is the common yellow or orange lichen, also sometimes known as maritime sunburst. So it's sort of the colours of that. So there's a lot of yellows on the outside, and then where it's got its fruiting bodies, which is sort of like its reproductive bits, it's got cups that generally have the orange centres. So that's sort of where the oranges come from, and also because the lichen is fairly orange. But yeah, so we just have a bit of a look. So at this stage it's really hard to see what colours you've put on for one thing and how they're going to turn out, so it's a bit of like a guessing imagination game to remember where you've put the colours. I mean, obviously with the orange that's quite a difference between the bubbly yellow and the not bubbly yellow, but if I was to put some not bubbly yellow on, that's exactly the same colour as the bubbly yellow. So that's just a case of like a bit of a mind juggle of remembering where you've put things, which is quite often fun. Cool. So now I'm going to move on to the crawling pink glaze. So with this one, it hasn't got very much flux in it. So when it melts, then the materials in that want to suck apart from each other and become like blobs, which is why it sort of pulls apart from each other and crawls. Yeah. So when this goes on as well, it will start cracking apart. So because this pink pulls apart from itself, it's quite nice to put over the different colours because you can quite often see the orange, in this case, beneath it. So I quite often put this over different slips as well. So I'm sure you've noticed that most of these colours, they go on in sort of like circular-ish shapes. That's again because the lichens that I'm looking at have mainly got circles in, and also with our circle slip spots as well. Or just ties it together a little bit. But yeah, so it's just, again, fill in the gaps, put a bit in, put a bit here, put a bit there, see what might look good. The orange and this pink do look really nice together, so I'm quite happy to put them next to each other, where some other colours need a bit more separation. Right, I think we're back round to the beginning of this now. Cool. And then final step-ish is just to put my clear glaze in between all of the rest of the gaps. Obviously I leave out where we've put the iron oxide on, but that just makes the whole thing nice and shiny. Sort of just ties it all together, makes the slips pop a little bit more as well when it's fired. And then obviously I'll glaze the inside as well, so it's nice and food safe for all the oils. Cool, so this one's going to go in the kiln up to about 1250. The kiln's currently over firing for about 30 degrees, so the programme says it's 1220. But such are the joys. It's only really new kilns that generally fire to the right temperature that the controller says, and then still it's a bit of a gamble. So we always put parametric cones in, which is a way of telling how much heat work has been done in each firing. So they sort of like bend at certain amounts of heat work. Heat work is basically a fancy way of saying temperature, but it's not quite temperature, because if you went really slowly up to your top temperature, then there'd be more heat work done than if you were to quickly go up to that same temperature. So it's sort of a time and temperature variant. But yeah, cool. So I'll just put this at the top. And we're pretty much done. Cool. So just before I leave you, have we enjoyed this video of me just rambling? I hope you all have enjoyed the video of me rambling. So yeah, that's it finished. It's just going to go into the kiln shortly, and then it'll come out in a miraculous however many hours, nice and shiny and lovely. Cool. So last step, glaze the inside and then just wipe around the bottom just to make sure that's a bit neater. But yeah, let me know in the comments if you've actually liked this whole experience and whether it's worth me doing it again, or whether you just had enough of me chatting at you. But yeah, see you all next time. Bye.